As you know, we have a series called Industry Icons where I talk to some of the best people in this industry to help mentor and motivate you. You want to see this one.
Don't hang up that phone. We've found what you're looking for. Welcome to the Let's Talk Cabling Podcast with Chuck Bowser, RCDD. What exactly does RCDD stand for? Registered Communications Distribution Designer. Just the expert you need to ensure your cable plant performs exactly as designed. Now, send the new guy to the truck for a bucket of dial tone and the cable stretchers, while you listen to an informative program on telecommunications.
Welcome to the show where we tackle the tough questions submitted by installers, project managers, estimators, IT personnel, and customers. We're connecting at the human level so that we can connect the world. If you're watching this show on YouTube, would you mind hitting the bell button and subscribe to be notified when new shows are coming out? If you're listening to us on one of the podcast platforms, would you mind leaving us a 5-star rating? If it's not a 5-star rating, let me know what I can do to make this a 5-star rating. Those simple little steps helps us take on the algorithm, which helps get this information out to more people. Because remember, we're trying to educate, encourage, and enrich the lives of the people in the ICT industry. If you're Thursday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, after hours live with your favorite RCDD, that would be me, where you can submit your questions and I can answer them live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and now also TikTok. So make sure that you send the questions early because they do end up to fill up pretty quickly. As I said earlier, we do a series called Industry Icons. And one of the things I've found about Industry Icons, they all have one trait that's similar between all of them. They have a great career, and then they're also finding a way to help that career launch other people to either be mentors or trainers. And this one is no exception to that. And I just found out tonight that this one and I have crossed paths before that I didn't remember, and I apologize for that. So tonight, I want to welcome Theresa Johnson. How are you doing tonight?
Thank you so much for having me here tonight. And I am doing fantastic. Thank you.
Give us the 30-second highlight of your career.
Highlight of my career, I have been a Bixie installer, technician, instructor for 25 years, as well as an IBEW technician for 25 years, and a instructor at the trade school for 14 years. I also worked in the field, came up as a technician in a service van, did large work, then went into the office and did project managing for about 10 years. So I've kind of done the majority of things that we do here in the low voltage industry.
Yeah, I was looking at your LinkedIn profile and I was like, she's got a pretty impressive career. And I was thinking, how am I going to be able to say this? Because I admit this, I am old school. You don't bring up a woman's age. I'm like, how can I relay all this experience without making her sound like, without giving away her age? And I like that you have a lot of backgrounds. Yeah, you were a service tech, you were a technician, and you were a project manager. I love that because it just kind of shows both sides of the fence, right? So you've been doing this for a while. Who in this industry has inspired you?
Who in this industry inspired me? Well, I was very fortunate to come up in the IBEW early on. Our business manager was Sam Chilia. Sam ended up being our executive secretary to our president, Hill, who has since retired. However, Sam, early on in the late 90s, was instrumental in getting low voltage started in Local 38. So for the last 25 years, we've been building a very strong low voltage presence in Cleveland, in the greater Cleveland area, and Ohio. So I would say Sam and my organizer, John Ferry, who back in the late 90s also went out and told people about this opportunity, because we know with the divestiture, everything changed, and everybody was doing things differently, and we needed standards. So the IBEW, being an electrical union, felt it was very important to get involved in that. And so I was really lucky to get into it early.
Yeah, I remember when divestiture happened, because I got in this industry way, way, way early, like in '82. And I remember when divestiture happened. And it's funny because when I talk to students about divestiture, now it's so long ago. Matter of fact, divestiture happened long before most of the students I'm teaching were even born.
Absolutely.
And you have to understand where we came from to know why we have some of the problems that we have, right?
Absolutely.
Right after divestiture, one thing you can say about AT&T, they were really good about training their people. Mm-hmm. After divestiture, there was a lot of companies that jumped in the market because they saw a business opportunity. Their guys weren't trained, and they were doing stupid things like leaving cables on the ceiling tiles and doing all the stupid stuff that you're not supposed to be doing because nobody trained them, right?
Sure.
And
there were no standards.
There were standards, but they were actually they were best practices written by Bell, and only Bell knew them. So when you actually look at the first set of standards, a lot of those best practices got rolled into that first set of standards. And I was kind of glad to see that, because I was one of those people who, I didn't work for AT&T. I started off with a small little computer cable company that we were installing, like we mentioned earlier, dual RG58 coax for Wang, and type 1, type 3, type 9, twin ax, all the old fun stuff, the hardline coax. And then when they started doing everything with twisted pair, I had like no idea. Thank God I had somebody like you who inspired me and mentored me through that whole transition process. So you said you had both sides. You got the technician side and the project management side. Were you always union?
No. Well, yes. At first, I started off in a cable assembly company, a custom cable assembly company. We made patch cords. I made every kind of patch cord there ever was before I ever got on a ladder, pulled a cable, hung a hook, cut in a caddy, anything. I was C-Core and AMP certified in single mode and multi-mode fiber back in the early 90s. Because of where I was working, Boeing was developing the 777, and to make wiring harnesses, prototype wiring harnesses, we had to be certified. So I was doing that kind of stuff early on.
Let me ask you this question, and this wasn't one of the ones I submitted ahead of time, but it'll be an easy one for you since you've got patch cord making experience. In the Big C Telecom Distributions Methods Manual, tells us that we should not be using field manufactured patch cords, right?
Correct.
So since you have experience in making patch cords in that factory setting,
yes,
you probably have a unique viewpoint on this, right? I would think.
I would say if the technician is competent and capable of installing a structured cabling system, there is no reason why that technician shouldn't be able to make that patch cord, as long as they understand the limitations of length and testing and those things that we have to abide by. Yeah. When I was doing the patch cord making way back in the day, we tested everything. We had DB ratings for things, and it went out in the package when it went out. So if they have access to correct testing tools, I don't see why our technicians wouldn't be able to do something like that.
Yeah, a technician who's got a really good attention to detail. Yes. I wouldn't have any problems making a patch cord. Right. But there are some contractors out there that would literally make all the patch cords for 100 cable drop, 200 cable drop in the field.
That's not cost efficient.
No, it's
absolutely not.
And you and I both know, right? They're using that crimper tool that they bought from Radio Shack 25 years ago that hasn't crimped right since the third time they've used it.
So exactly. Actually, it's very interesting that you bring up that. because I have my original amp crimp tool that we had the different dies for, so many different kinds of 11, 45. There was the ones that had the offsets and so on for the deck and anyhow, I still have that, but I would never use it because those dies are only good for so many crimps.
Right.
And when those pins don't line up exactly right with the pins inside your keystone or whatever you're plugging into, it doesn't work correctly.
Right.
So for sure, if you have a crimper that you've been using for 20 years, just because it worked all this time doesn't mean it works right all this time.
Just because that's how your dad made patch cords doesn't mean that's how you should be making patch cords.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, a lot of people know this. The podcast is not my full-time job. This is my gig, my after-hours gig. So I have a full-time job, and the company I work for makes patch cords. That's one of the things they do. And I've visited the facility that does it, and I'm telling you, they use way better quality crimpers and stuff than you can ever buy over the field. Now, if you're doing like a service call, and you just gotta make 1 or 2 patch cords to get somebody up and running, there's no problem with that.
Sure.
No problem with that. But if you're putting in, 25, 50, 100, 200, 500, 1,000, like you said, it's not cost efficient, and I don't know who has the money to do that. Yeah, and you're right. They test every single one of them's tested coming out of the factory, right? So you've been on both sides of the fence. You've been a technician. You've been a project manager. Which do you like better?
Teaching.
Well, I'm going to that question. So right now the question is specifically between a technician and a project manager.
Okay, I would say they both have their benefits. However, being in the field and working, my dad was a builder. I've been on a job site since I was 2 years old. I like working with the tools and with the guys and getting dirty and doing all of that stuff. So I would say being a technician more so than being a project manager, although project managing is very rewarding in itself. I learned quite a bit of things on that side as well.
Yeah, with a project, for just my opinion, but as a project manager, your success relies heavily upon a bunch of other people. When you're a technician, your success relies on you.
Right.
And there was many times when I was a project manager that I'd be like, I want to just go back to the field. I just want to go out there and terminate jacks and test.
Many times.
But then there's other times when I was a technician, I was like, I can't wait to get out of the field because I'm tired of working on this 13th floor of this building that doesn't have the exterior skin on the wall and I'm freezing.
Getting the hoist up every morning with, 20 other guys for sure.
Yep. So you kind of already alluded to my next question because you've been in the field as a service technician and a technician. You've been a project manager. Did you ever estimate?
That was our project managing was walking the job, estimating the job, estimating the materials for the job, doing any change. It was everything from what we call turnkey today. So yes, I did estimating.
Gotcha. Yeah,
I did closeout documentation. I did.
And that's one of the things that's one of my pet peeves about our industry. When a project manager should be solely focused on running projects. They're going to estimate change orders and stuff. Don't get me wrong, but if you got a project manager who also has to estimate new projects being bid they're not managing their projects. And if they're managing the projects, then they're not responding to bids. And when they finish a project, there's no work coming in. So I honestly feel that the best solution is to have somebody estimating, somebody project managing, and the key there is to have good, kickoff meeting between those two when the project's awarded. Right. So
absolutely.
you've been in the field, you've been a project manager, and you've now been an instructor. Which one is your favorite?
Oh, instructing, absolutely.
And why? And why is that?
Because I am very passionate about what we do. I have been for a very long time, and it is where our life is going. Um, Technology drives everything, so much so that pretty soon it's going to be driving us in autonomous vehicles. So I'm not sure how I got so lucky as to get in on the cusp of it, but I have been thirsty for information ever since I asked my boss, how does the wires know that they're twisted? What, why? And once he explained that to me the very first time, I was just enthralled with everything I could learn.
Yep.
And once I had gotten that passion, I wanted to show other people why we're doing what we're doing. And then, from there, it just kind of blossomed. I took every class I could take at our trade school. And when the opportunity arose that one of our instructors was having his knee replaced, they said, hey, do you want to sub? And I said, yeah. And from there, it just never stopped. After that, I was able to become a Bixie instructor. They sent me to Tampa, and I spent 2 weeks in Tampa and became an instructor for Local 38. And that is my intention here in 354. So
Gotcha.
very excited.
Do you remember who your instructors were when you took that T3 class?
Now, I'm terrible with names. And if I had all of my portfolio in front of me, I could whip them off. However, I'm not going to be able to give you names.
So I took the T3 class too.
Yeah.
I was the certified trainer for a huge contractor in the Virginia area for too many years. And so, and I don't know when you took yours or how when it relates to when I took mine, but I know when I took mine, the first week they taught you the installer class, the apprentice class, the installer class, and the technician class. Because back then it wasn't installer copper, installer fiber. And then the second week they divided the class up, and you had to teach it back to the instructors and your fellow students. Does that sound kind of similar to how you did it?
So I did it in 2014. Or no, sorry, 2017. So no, it was completely different. I had to have my 350 within 2 years before, but I had my 350. And so I had to retake the 350 class, but I didn't have to sit for the exam. And then the second week, we did the train the trainer. And it had not been taught in so long that two of my fellow students, one was Sawyer. He is in charge of like the UK and fluke testing. He was in my class for train the trainer. And also, gosh, I'm terrible with names because I don't use them very often, but he was also training to be a Bixie instructor. Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway.
That's fine. I'm actually still in contact with a few of the people that I went through my class with way back when. Are you same with you?
Just on LinkedIn, basically. We really never have gone forward. I mean, I have a picture and everything of all of us in front of the Bixie. And no, we really haven't, which I guess I should. The last few years have been a change of scenery for me.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of my favorite memories of taking that T3 course. So it was the second week, and they divvied up the class modules amongst all the people in the class. You had to teach back a certain piece of class. And so I got the fortunate duty to teach the 66 blocks to my fellow instructors. So we're sitting at this table, and I'm going through how to terminate the 66 blocks, and they're all surrounding me. And of course, the whole first week they're all over you. PPE, always wear your glasses. PPE.
I know where you're going.
So I'm sitting and I'm going through my demo, the 66 blocks, and And then I happened to look up at the guy across the table from me, and he has his safety glasses sitting on top of his head. So I stopped and I said, "Please put your safety glasses on." And he did. And then I said after class, "What are you trying to do? Trying to mess me up?" I said, "I'm trying to focus on not to be like a blithering idiot, and you're messing with me." And he goes, "They told me to do that, Chuck." I was like,
they did. That happened in my class as well. So, who's been the lead dude at Bixby for like the last
Christopher Hobbs?
Yeah, Chris Hobbs. Okay, so Chris Hobbs taught my class. All of those guys taught my class, but Chris, unbeknownst to me, wrote the data center donut analogy for the different levels of data centers, right? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
So we had to teach that back, or we had to teach something back. I chose that. and Chris told me I did not do that good because he wrote it. And but anyway, I did fine. Oh my gosh, yeah, that was that whole class was very very interesting. Yes.
Yeah, I was whipped at the end of those 2 weeks after that class.
Holy cow, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyhow, sorry.
Yep. So let's switch back to the technician for a second. So
yes.
I see the caliber of people coming into the field nowadays, not better, not worse, just different. They absorb information differently, and they process information differently than somebody like of my age, and you're a little not quite as old as me age. What would be a good tip that you would give, because you've been an instructor now for a while, what tip would you give an installer coming into our field that would help them be better at their job, technician wise?
So interestingly enough, I have 3 children. I have 2 boys and a girl, and my daughter is actually a technician. Nice. She came through our program. So what I have told her repeatedly is do your best. Make it as good as you can, and as well put together as a technician should have it done. Understand your job, know what is expected of you, and do the best you can. Take information from everybody that you work with and make your own way, because there are people out there who it's my way or the highway, or just go and do it. So you have to find your way in between there. Take what you can, leave. There's a lot of other stuff. There's a lot of people who say, that what we do in the information part of it or the theory part of it isn't as important as working in the field, doing the hands-on work. But you have to understand why you're doing the things you're doing and how to do them properly. There's so much behind that learn everything that you can, basically. It changes every single day in what we do. Our standards change, the industry changes. Now, we're going to have autonomous vehicles. There's thousands and thousands of satellites in the sky. Everything's going to be moving at such a fast pace. We have to keep up. So what we have to do is keep learning. That's what I would tell the new people coming out.
That's great advice. The thing I would add to that is be humble. Be willing to admit when you're wrong and learn from that. Right. And it happened to me just today, actually. So I'm in this group on Facebook. It's called Low Voltage Nation. And somebody posted a picture of a cable, and when I first looked at it, I looked at it on my phone, right? So it's got that small little screen. I don't have my prescription glasses on, and I looked at it and I just kind of said, "Oh yeah, that cable's got cable burn." And then somebody comes back and says, "Oh no, that's not cable burn." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." And then they'll, Chuck, you're wrong. You're wrong. I'm like,
It was overheated.
I got 40 years. I'm not wrong. And then when I looked at it on the picture on my computer screen and zoomed in, oh yeah, it was tore by a piece of Romex. I was like, oh yeah, I stand corrected. Oops.
Right.
Right.
Things happen.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, things happen. And especially with what we do, you can't take everything like it's the end. We make mistakes. We're humans. However, we just have to learn from that and go on. Can't keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Exactly. Unless it's teaching, because no two
Well,
classes are alike.
No. I tried to teach 2 first-year classes one year because I'm like, how hard can it be? I'll teach it on Monday. I'll teach it on Wednesday. Same thing, right? No, they work at different paces. On Wednesday, I'd be like, did I say that on Monday or did I think about saying it today? It was very challenging.
I hear you. So you gave your advice to an installer. What about somebody who's in the field right now and they want to become a project manager? What piece of advice would you give them to help give them a solid career in project management?
So you are the face of your contractor. You have to be the person that takes control. Most of the time, your project manager is busy and you're the one that the customer sees. So they're going to come to you. If you have the information that they need, then they don't have to go to the project manager. You can guide them to them if you don't have the information that they need. But taking charge and not saying that it's somebody else's responsibility. Well, that's the project manager. Well, that's the project manager. Well, if you want to be the project manager, you should probably understand what that encompasses, which is a lot more than you really think it does. Because there's materials that you have to make sure are on time. There's labor, especially now with COVID, it's so challenging. There's the customer and their environment when you can do the work. There's so many things that the contractor does before we as technicians ever even show up on the job. The project managing side of it is just as challenging as the installation side.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to be a project manager right this very moment, with just because the things that you mentioned with, tie-ups in the logistics chain and then knowing whether or not you can go on the customer site, what special do you have to wear masks, you have to sanitize. There's a lot more stuff right now that they have to deal with than I ever had to deal with. So I don't know if I'd want to. Yeah, exactly. So we're in a male-dominated industry. Okay. So what benefits appealed to you to come to this industry?
My dad was a builder. I've been on a job since I was 2 years old, so it wasn't really different for me. I understand that we're in a male-dominated industry. However, with the advances of working smarter and not as hard physically, we are our industry has made it safer and easier for more people to be able to do this. I don't have to pick up hundreds of pounds of things. I have a lift that can do that for me. Or so in our industry, we just have to understand that you got to carry your ladder, you got to carry your weight, you have to do the same thing as everybody else. Nobody's going to do your job for you. Nobody's going to pat you on the back. You got to do it. And there's going to be opinions of people that might hurt your feelings, but if you let those things get you, you're not going to get very far. What you have to do is just keep moving forward for yourself and for the industry.
Yeah, and that's and just you're going to run into that even if you're a male in this industry, because we tend to be gruff and sarcastic, right? And we'll say things to each other that we wouldn't say to anybody else.
Oh my!
And if you have to have a thick skin, you really, really do in this industry. Because I've been called a lot of things by people who I knew liked me, And I'm like, but I knew that if they were being nice to me and being cordial, I know there was a problem. I did something wrong and I'm in trouble. Right?
So saying that, we all have a nickname, right? Everybody has a nickname. I have a couple of nicknames. They call me Mother Teresa because I bring everybody along with me. It's not a religious type thing. I just want everybody to succeed. I want everybody to win. But I'm also Teflon. If you know what Teflon is, it's very slippery material and you just let it slip right off of you. Because if you carry all of that stuff around with you, you're not going to be moving forward. So
yep.
For sure, I've had my share of challenges, but I just choose to move on from them.
I hear you. Water off a duck's back. You can either choose and let it elevate you or bring you down. That's your choice.
Absolutely.
Your choice, absolutely. So let's say that we had I've got a magic time machine and I can flip open the door and I can transport you back to being 18 years old again, just getting in the industry. I know it's only a couple years for you, but what would you tell your 18-year-old self now with all the experience and knowledge that you have now?
I would say you're on the right path. Things are going to happen, good and bad, that you have not planned for. Got to roll with it. You can't let roadblocks stand in your way. You have to keep going. You have to build a bridge and get over it. And so a lot of people get stuck. Don't get stuck and just keep going. Knowledge is power. The more you learn, the more you are beneficial to those around you, and it's just keep going. That's what I would tell myself.
Yep, that's my sign off on from the podcast. Knowledge is power.
I've always said knowledge is power. Yes.
Yep, absolutely. Now you kind of already answered this question earlier, but I didn't know that you had children, and so my question here was, if you have a daughter, now I know you have a daughter, and you already kind of answered she already isn't getting this industry. Would you recommend this industry for another young lady who decides to get in this industry?
I do it all the time. There are people, so I recruit or organize or talk to people all of the time about our industry. Not everybody understands that there is this opportunity here and that it is so wide open that you can do just about anything. I mean, there are just in our small little area, we have security, AV, fire alarm, voice and data. There's just a million different things that we could do. And working with your hands is what a lot of people do. When they show up to my class, they're like, we have to open a book. I try to make it as much hands-on as the book, because so many people need to have that interaction with seeing it and doing it, not just hearing about it. So yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of people that need to understand that this opportunity exists. That I don't know how we get to them, but your podcast here could be part of that.
Yep.
Or should be part of that.
Exactly. Most people who are attracted to our industry are what I call, I don't even know if this is an actual term or not, or it might have been, I might have read it and I just forgot that I read it because I do have a bad memory, are what I call tactile learners. They learn when you put something in their hands.
Right.
They can read about it all day long, and yes, they will absorb some of that information. But the minute you put a jack in their hands and a punch tool and they start doing it, they're going to absorb it a lot better, a lot faster.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of people that our industry typically attract. And it can be male or female. It doesn't even have to be one or the other. It's just the people that we attract. So let me ask you one final question. Do you think the industry is more accepting of women as installers and project managers now than they were 20, 25 years ago?
Absolutely. I've lived through that transition. I often showed up on a job and was thought, oh, great, we have her. And I just did my job. And then they would be like, oh, okay, well, next time you can come and do this because you came and did your job. And then they would start asking for me. Oh, she knows what she's doing. Have her, as long as, I don't think it's male or female. I think it's you and your attitude towards the industry and the people. Don't take anything from anybody, but don't give anything either. Just come, do your job, and people will accept you for who you are. There's always going to be the person on the job who's like, oh, you can't do my job. Well, you know what? I don't want to do your job. I want to do my job. And as long as I do my job, fine. That's all there is to it. There's more people that aren't like that today than there was when I first got into the industry. So yeah, there's a lot of females that are doing our work, not nearly enough. I'm almost always the only, but that doesn't mean there aren't any. Right. So all good stuff. I'm so excited. Oh, yeah, I really want to change our industry, our IBEW industry.
That's why I labeled you an industry icon. Because you're doing it. You're making that sucks. To me, that's the definition of an industry icon. Somebody who is changing the industry.
And that's what I want to do. I want us to be different voltage, not low voltage.
Right. Yeah, that's always a confusing term when you say low voltage, because most technicians are like, when you should ask them what is low voltage, a lot of them are like, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we're technicians, and that's why in the IBEW we do teach DC and AC and all of that stuff. So they do understand. They just don't use it as much as the electricians do.
Yeah, I'll definitely have you back on so we can talk more about the training side of it, and also dive more into the joint apprenticeship training program because because a couple of the companies I worked for over the years were union companies, and I initially when I got in this industry I hated unions. But then when I went to work for a union company, both as a technician and as a project manager, I realized that, they do a lot of good.
Yeah, it's just about a collective bargaining voice. That's really, it's just giving the labor a voice against the contractor that wants to make and keep all the money, even though, because they provide the material, the jobs, the tools, all of that. Absolutely. But we have the knowledge and the skill. And so, there's that.
Well, I did a project in Ohio as a project manager, but then I was out of the union. And my local guy, matter of fact, it was in the Cleveland area. It was Niles, Ohio.
Dude, okay, I know Niles. That's where my daughter lives.
Yeah, I was in Niles, Ohio, doing a project for MCI WorldCom.
Dude, my brother worked at MCI WorldCom. His name was Kirk Starlin. I bet you knew. He had long hair.
I might have. Yeah, we cabled it. I cabled it. I was the project manager for that job.
No kidding.
Yeah. And here's the point I'm getting to. I was a project manager. I wasn't in the union. And so we were doing the voice and the data cabling. And we also got contracted to do the Valcom stuff.
Okay.
And the electricians pitched a fit. They're, no, that's our work. That's our work. So my local low voltage guy said, that's your work. I'll go fight that for you. Right. So that's what I'm saying. There's a benefit for unions on both sides of that coin.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Right to work. Absolutely. If your contractor is taking care of you, there's no reason for you to be in a union. Good for you. If they're giving you everything, good for you. If not, that's what we're for.
Exactly. Well, Theresa, it's been a pleasure, and I'm glad to have you back on again. Keep making changes in this industry, making it better. That's all I can say.
Excellent. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. You too. Until next time, remember, knowledge is power.
That's it for this episode of today's podcast. We hope you were able to learn something. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Also, leave a rating so we can help even more people learn about telecommunications. Until next time, be safe.